Good morning and welcome. Well, good morning to some, good afternoon to others, and good evening to those that are, I do believe, in the Far East. And we are an international membership organization, and we do have callers from around the world today. So welcome from wherever you are to the monthly webinar from the Computer Society on our SWEBOK version 3, Intro, Usages, and Ongoing Work, which is being hosted by Pierre Bourque, who is currently one of our Board of Governors. Pierre is currently the Dean of Studies of the École des Technologies University in Quebec and is professor in the Department of Software and IT Engineering. He was the director of the Master in Software Engineering program from 2005 to 2013. He also teaches courses and does consulting work in software requirements. He was named to the Board of Governors of the IEEE Computer Society in 2010 and is an elected member for the periods 2011 through 2016. He led the co-editor of SWEBOK Guide version 3, the Guide to Software Engineering Body of Knowledge, and was co-editor of the 2001 and 2004 versions. The SWEBOK Guide is also recognized as an ISO IEC technical report. He also serves as the IEEE Computer Society Nominations Committee. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Pierre, who's going to discuss the SWEBOK version 3. Your chat function is on. If you are on the call, if you have any questions, please feel free to use it, and we'll answer those questions as they come up or towards the end of the call. Thanks, and Pierre, it's all yours.
Thank you, Eric. So my name is Pierre Bourque, and I will repronounce the name of my school, which Eric, his French is not quite up to par. So I'm a professor and the Dean of Studies at École des Technologies Supérieures in Montreal, which is part of the University of Quebec State University system. So the title of this webinar is SWEBOK, Guide to the Software Engineering Body of Knowledge, more generally known as SWEBOK version 3.0, which came out in early 2014. I'm going to do a little intro, talk a little bit about usages, and talk about ongoing, or actually I would say it's planned work that's coming up very soon and how you can contribute. So those are the three things I'm going to talk about. My presentation will last about 20 minutes, and during my presentation, please submit questions using the chat function, and the staff of the Computer Society who are online, who just spoke actually, will be monitoring the chat and flagging the questions for me so that I can answer them in the, let's say, the 10-minute period at the end of the talk. This webinar is scheduled to last 30 minutes, and that's my intent is really to hold it to 30 minutes. I know everybody has a busy schedule. So let's move on. So once again, I'm going to give a brief introduction to the SWEBOK Guide, talk about how you can use the SWEBOK Guide in your organization, and then talk a little bit about the upcoming work and how you can participate. So let's begin with the introduction. So what are the objectives of this project? Well, first of all, as was just mentioned, the Computer Society is a worldwide or international organization, and software engineering is undoubtedly a worldwide industry. So we wish to promote a consistent view of software engineering worldwide. To clarify the place, and there are always questions about this, so we wish to clarify the place and set the boundary of software engineering with respect to other disciplines. To characterize the contents of the software engineering body of knowledge, that is, to determine what is, I would say, proper to the software engineering field. To provide a topical access, that is, or an index, if you wish, to the topics within software engineering, and to provide a foundation for curriculum development and individual certification and licensing material. And obviously, these will come back as potential or opportunities for usage at the end of my talk. So these are the objectives of the SWEBOK Guide. They have been the objectives across all three versions. This has not changed. These were the objectives at the onset of the project, before the first version in the late 1990s, and they still remain valid today. So, first of all, you really have to understand this slide to understand what the SWEBOK Guide is. The aim of the SWEBOK guide is to describe, identify, define, however you want to put it, generally accepted knowledge in the field of software engineering. That is, if we use, there are two ways of defining this, two complementary ways of defining this in the SWEBOK guide, and these have been used also across all three versions. That is knowledge that is applicable, not necessarily applied, but applicable to most projects most of the time, and for which there is widespread consensus, and this is important, and this has played an important role in the development process, widespread consensus about their value and usefulness. And also another way of defining it is the knowledge that a professional software engineer who would have the equivalent of a North American bachelor's degree plus 4 years of experience would possess. By definition, the SWEBOK guide thereby excludes advanced and research knowledge, which are used in the, let's say, the bleeding edge, and or being developed in the bleeding edge, and the research in universities and research labs, and also, very importantly, excludes specialized knowledge. For example, knowledge that only pertains and specifically pertains to embedded systems or real-time systems or high-performance systems. This type of knowledge obviously is very important, but it is excluded by definition from the SWEBOK guide. Some underlying principles of the project since the very beginning. The development process is transparent, meaning that it is fully published and fully documented. And I will show briefly how the results of this. I will be transparent with you in a few slides and show you how this has been put into practice. Consensus building. Once again, as in the previous definition, there has to be widespread consensus on what is included in the SWEBOK guide. Therefore, the development process is designed to build over time consensus in industry, among professional societies, and also within standard-setting bodies and in academia. And since the very beginning, the SWEBOK guide has been available for free, at least in one format, and this is still the case, and it is still the intent of the Computer Society to make the SWEBOK guide available for free. If you go on SWEBOK.org and you register, you will have access to the document, complete and full access to the document. The SWEBOK guide, if you print it out, if you buy the book version, it has roughly 350 pages. But once again, it is fully available, at least in one format, on the SWEBOK.org. So what are the deliverables? Well, first of all, a consensus on a list of knowledge areas that are proper or that are specific, if you wish, to the field of software engineering. And this list of at the knowledge area level, or the list of knowledge areas, has not really changed or has changed quite little since the very beginning since the first version, I would say, published in 2001. So this list is pretty stable. Then a consensus on a list of topics within each knowledge area, or a breakdown of topics. What are the topics that are generally accepted within each knowledge area? And of course, this has changed over time. And for each specific topic, or for each one of these topics, we point to relevant reference materials that actually describe the topic in question. The SWEBOK guide is known as the Guide to the Software Engineering Body of Knowledge. The actual body of knowledge is contained in the reference materials. And a consensus on a list of related disciplines, meaning disciplines for which software engineering shares a common boundary. Of course, this is in addition to application areas. Of course, software is applicable to basically all types of applications that you can find. So, what are the updated knowledge areas in V3? So let's talk about the updates, I would say, to the existing knowledge areas in V3. All 10 existing knowledge areas in the previous version have been updated very often by newly recruited co-editors. We had editors and co-editors from around the world. Reference material citations have been renewed for all topics of all KAs. I would say we completely redid the reference citations, and the breakdown of topics and included topics have been revisited for all KAs. So I would say we did a very significant update to the content of the existing 10 knowledge areas that were there before V3. So what are these knowledge areas? Software requirements, software design, where we notably included a new sub-area on the user interface design, in addition to updating the descriptions, in addition to updating some other topics, in addition to updating the reference material. But I wanted to point out that here we have a new sub-area on user interface design. Software construction, we also have a new sub-area on software construction technologies, once again in addition to all the other updates. Software testing, software maintenance, these 5 knowledge areas were all present in previous versions. Software configuration management, software engineering management, software engineering process, where the structure or the breakdown of the topics is quite different, notably due to the many changes and notably to the agile processes that are very significantly used these days, and software quality. All these 10 knowledge areas have been significantly updated from what was in the 2004 version before. We have new knowledge areas in the V3. First of all, we have a new one called Software Engineering Models and Methods. It used to be called Software Engineering Tools and Methods. The Software Engineering Tools sub-area has been distributed across all KAs, so that sub-area does not exist anymore, and we now have a tool sub-area and all the other 9 KAs. And we added we added a new sub-area on software engineering models. 3 new sub-areas actually on software engineering models. Then we have a new knowledge area, I would say, which is cross-cutting to the other existing knowledge areas, and they are software, and then this is software engineering professional practice, talks about ethics, communication, psychology of teams, this type of thing. So I would sort of soft skills as well as ethics that practitioners and professionals must be able to apply when actually conducting professional or industrial software engineering. And then I would say we would have foundational, if you wish, or underlying knowledge areas, software engineering economics, computing foundations, engineering foundations, and mathematical foundations. The recognized related disciplines are, that is, these are disciplines for which software engineering shares a common boundary, and we have identified them as computer engineering, computer science, mathematics, project management, quality management in general, this would be things like ISO 9000, and of course systems engineering, which is increasingly playing an important role. For each of the 15 knowledge areas, we have a breakdown of topics, such as this one for software requirements. So here we have the software requirements breakdown. As you'll see, that it is broken down into a number of sub-areas, and within each sub-area, we have a number of topics. For each one of these topics, we have a brief description, usually a few paragraphs, sometimes a little bit more. And for each of these topics, we point to relevant reference material that has been very carefully chosen. Excuse me. Once again, I would like to emphasize that the SWEBOK guide is a guide to the software engineering body of knowledge. and the actual body of knowledge itself is included in the reference material. We are a guide to the software engineering body of knowledge. So, for example, software requirements has been determined to be proper to the field of software engineering or to the discipline of software engineering, and these are the topics that the consensus building approach has deemed to be generally accepted within the knowledge area of software requirements. We have two, I would say, very useful appendices in the SWEBOK V3. The first one is new. We have an annotated list of IEEE and ISO IEC standards applicable to each of the KAs. So if you are interested in identifying or looking up standards that are applicable to software requirements or software design or software configuration management, whether they be IEEE or ISO IEC standards, I believe that you will find this appendix very useful. In addition, the consolidated reference list, which all the topics point to, is listed in Appendix C, and it contains 36 reference items. Most of these are books, some are reports, and a few are papers or perhaps technical reports. This reference list in itself, I believe, could be quite useful, and I will point out some opportunities for usage at the end in this regard. Once again, the SWEBOK guide is not my view of software engineering. It is not the view of the editorial team. There has been a consensus building, a very important consensus building process around the SWEBOK guide before we actually published it. And this was the case for the 2001, this was the case for the 2004 version, and this was also the case for the V3 version. So, for example, we had a SWEBOK change control board. We had editors from 9 countries. All the knowledge areas were submitted for public review. Roughly 150 reviewers from over 30 countries participated in this very, very open review process. Anybody could submit comments. We publicly adjudicated the roughly 2,000 review comments that we received. That is these roughly 150 reviewers submitted 2,000 comments, and for each one of these comments, we identified whether the comment was accepted, and therefore implemented, partially accepted, what part was accepted, what part was not accepted, whether or not it was refused, and so forth. This is in addition to the roughly 10,000 comments that we publicly adjudicated for the previous version. So I would say in total we have publicly adjudicated roughly 12,000 comments over the number of years, and about 600 reviewers, if my memory serves me right, have taken part in the reviewing process so far. We had a formal ballot among IEEE CS members. It was very, very widely yes. We had formal resolutions by the Professional Activities Board and then by the Board of Governors. And in addition, the SWEBOK guide has gone through all the review processes at ISO IEC. And as the case for the 2004 version, the V3 is also recognized as an ISO IEC technical report. It is Technical Report 19759, published in 2015. And why is it a technical report and not a standard? It is because in the ISO world, to be a standard, you must be prescriptive in nature, and we are descriptive in nature. We don't prescribe how to do this or how to do that. We describe the field of software engineering. But we have gone through identical review processes, and we are formally recognized as an ISO technical report. So, quite an elaborate review and adoption process here. As an indication of usage, here are some statistics that I collected last weekend on HIT that you can find on books.google.com, scholar.google.com, which is mostly refers to, I would say, scientific papers, Google.com, and IEEE Explore. And we can see that the SWEBOK guide is quite widely cited. So some opportunities for usage. Well, first of all, you can study about generally one individual can study about generally accepted knowledge in software engineering, use the SWEBOK guide to study about generally accepted knowledge in software engineering, perhaps to refresh their knowledge. You could use it to identify relevant reference materials and standards within a given knowledge area. You could use it to review, especially coverage, software engineering focusing on a particular knowledge area. For example, I teach software requirements, and I use the SWEBOK guide software requirements breakdown to analyze the coverage of my course and to make sure that I am teaching at different levels of depth, obviously, but that I am teaching the correct breadth of topics in my course. This is also the same for coverage of KAs in graduate and undergraduate curricula, and there are a number of examples that have used the SWEBOK guide to analyze the coverage of knowledge areas within their graduate and undergraduate software engineering curricula. You can use the reference list items into your as the reference items in your educational and training materials, for developing certification and training programs, for the actual content of the training programs in detail, or for coverage once again. For developing other frameworks, for example, you will find a model curricula at the undergraduate and at the graduate level in software engineering, and they use the SWEBOK guide, obviously, as an important input to the content of these model curricula. You can find an important competency model in software engineering that also uses the SWEBOK guide as an important reference document. There are examples of that organizations have developed software engineering career development programs on using the SWEBOK guide and perhaps other material as well, but the SWEBOK guide is an important input to these software engineering career development programs. For developing job descriptions or competency profiles, or for validating job descriptions and competency profiles. For situating your research contributions within the field of software engineering, and other examples as well that you can find. Nearly all of these can be found in the literature. You will find examples in the literature of organizations or researchers or of schools or lecturers and teachers and professors that have used the SWEBOK guide in all of these examples. So SWEBOK guide SWEBOK V3 is a significant new edition of the SWEBOK guide. There are many opportunities for usage, and we are already seeking participation and submissions for next version. This is my address. You can communicate with me if you have any questions, and of course you can find lots of information on swebok.org. So let me see if I can answer a few questions here now that I've completed my talk. Okay, so I'm going to take the question, to what extent can some or all of these knowledge areas be organized into an ontology? Actually, I think this is very relevant, and in many ways, if you look at the definition of an ontology, which is a kind of knowledge model, one of the important characteristics of an ontology is that there is consensus on the definitions, on the content of the ontology. So there's a widespread, we have spent a lot of time developing a widespread consensus on these definitions, though the actual document is a very straightforward, standard PDF document or wiki. You cannot reason on this. You cannot do any reasoning. It is not into an ontology tool or a knowledge modeling tool. But you will find in the literature examples of people who have worked on this, often on subsets, and I believe that this is certainly an opportunity for improvement in the future, and I think it will go in this direction in the ensuing years. How can members help in future work? This is another question that I see here on my chat box, my question box. So as I mentioned earlier, the SWEBOK guide was certainly, I was the lead co-editor of the previous version. I've been the V3 and editor of previous versions, but the SWEBOK guide is obviously was built with contributions of hundreds of individuals. If you are interested in participating in the future version, please communicate with Rich Hilliard. There will be opportunities for reviewing. There will be opportunities perhaps working perhaps as some kind of editorial. We had a very large and extensive editorial team from around the world. This is very important. I would say also an editorial team that's diverse. So if you're looking for a more important contribution, we had a change control board in the past also. So please look at the website, the email, the URL that I indicated, or communicate with Rich Hilliard and indicate your interest in getting involved, and we'll see how we can do that. Let's see if I can. There's a question here, perhaps that staff of the Computer Society can answer that are online. The question is, will there be a webinar or on how to achieve licensing for professional software engineering credentials? Can the staff take that question?
Hi, this is Eric Berkowitz in membership. Currently, one is not scheduled. That's not my area. I will have to check with some other staff members to find out the feasibility of doing that. But I have the question. We have the question bank, and we'll be back in touch with you on that question.
Okay. V3, does it mean version 3? That's another question that came in. Yes, it does. But actually, I would say it's version 4. We had a prototype version. We published it. Was made available in the late 1990s. Then we had a more important version published in 2001, which I would say would be the first official version, V1 if you wish. 2004 version came out in early 2005, and this one, V3, yes, means the version 3. Will the next one be V3.1, where perhaps we will be more in some kind of incremental approach? Perhaps. I believe this is the way that we should be going, just like in software, or will it be V4.0? That remains to be determined. Notably for ISO, at the ISO level, ISO will not handle all these incremental versions. They will only handle the major updates. But yes, I think we should have a mixture of major updates and more minor updates. Let me see, I'm looking if there's a... Is there an MCQ for IEEE software professional master engineers? Does the staff know what the MCQ means? Okay, I'll take one more question, the final question. This one is a very good question. Are there similarities between PMBOK and SWEBOK KAs? So the PMBOK, or the project management body of knowledge, is specifically is a generic project management body of knowledge for all types of projects. We have a software engineering management knowledge area which describes knowledge which is specific to the management of software engineering, including software engineering project management. And we have adopted, to make things that are more coherent or fluid, the breakdown of the software engineering management knowledge area is specifically, at least at the sub-area level, is specifically inspired, actually conforms directly to the project management body of knowledge breakdown. So we have made sure that the two documents, I would say, are fluid, or actually are relatively coherent from one to the other. But for the project management body of knowledge is for project management in general, any type of project, could be a construction project or a software project or an IT project, and our SWEBOK is for software engineering knowledge across all knowledge areas, but we do have one specific knowledge area on software engineering management, and the breakdown of the software engineering management is, I would say, consistent with, at least at the very top level, the project management body of knowledge. Our 30 minutes is up. A little bit, we've gone over, slightly over, about 32 minutes. It has been a pleasure doing this webinar. It has been my pleasure doing this webinar. I see that there are people across the world, and hopefully I will see you involved in the future work for the next increment or the next version. Please send in your submissions, your thoughts, your ideas, and hopefully I will see you around in upcoming work. Pat, do you want to wrap this up?
Thank you, Pierre. This is Eric again. Again, I just want to thank everyone for joining the call today. This is a monthly series that we have, each month a different topic, hosted by a board member. Next month is going to be on the standards process, and President Roger Fuji will be hosting that event, date and time to be determined. We do have all the questions, so if your question did go unanswered, we will be in touch with the answer. Again, thank you for your time this morning, and have a great day or restful evening. Thanks and goodbye.
Good day.